This is the Singularity Syndicate podcast. I'm Naja Faysal. Today I'm joined by Michael Hudlow, author of How Not to Fuck Up Your CRM with AI and founder of Bitsia CRM. And we're going to discuss the implications of AI on the CRM field. And now here's Michael Hudlow. Welcome to the program, Michael.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I want to start with asking you, as a CRM expert and consultant, how did you react, the first reaction and first impression of ChatGPT?
What I would say many of us thought, when you first saw it, you were quite frankly amazed. I mean, who wasn't amazed when they saw the first things happen? And then immediately you start thinking about how it's applicable to your world. And my first thoughts were about the big problems in my book that you alluded to. Many of the issues that I speak to are on a technical nature, but they're not necessarily technical problems. They're more people process, adoption related things, as opposed to, which system can handle my specific problem. And that's usually a direct byproduct of the fact that there are so many high quality systems out there. But with specific to AI and AI solutions, which seemingly come out every day, I started to think about what within the CRM world could become automated by AI intelligence, and there are many things. The four basic areas that I've cut that up into in my upcoming book, which is actually on AI and CRM, as luck would have it, is really around marketing, content creation, hyper fast or faster business development activities, such as research activities, which usually or historically have been done internally at companies by maybe research divisions within a company about market needs and things like that. So obviously research itself gets sped up, content creation gets sped up, the identifying of your internal information, meaning your own intellectual property and customers that you've gone out after in the past, and then marrying that up quickly to external resources, see where those overlaps are, and then add that to your business development activities. And then the last part, which is a little more, I guess what I'd say behind the curtain, is the helping of data administrators keep all of this information clean, scrubbed, whatever the best way you want to talk about it, uniform taxonomy. And also built in, I skipped over, built into the business development activity, also has to do with the reporting, summarization, and analytics that actually can get delivered, let's just say automatically to the executives or the professionals that need that information quickly.
A lot of people, they think they know and they think they have a proper definition of what it is. I'm sure a lot of listeners are familiar with like Salesforce, HubSpot, Dynamics,
Right.
365, all of these big names, right? So what does these names really do? And is CRM just a software?
I have answered this question before to many executives that hire me to basically have these types of talks. And the reality is this: even if you don't have an official CRM system, air quotes system, as for like the ones that you just mentioned, you still have a CRM process. It might be Excel spreadsheets. It may be, your Exchange, your email and your calendar, but you do have a system hopefully, at some level for identifying and reminding you to go talk to your customers and keeping your client base happy. In the more modern sense of the definition, it is a generally large system, but there are many of niche players out there as well that has taken all of the processes, whether they're manual or technical processes, and put them all into one comprehensive system that can help you keep track of who at your company is doing. And I'll keep it simple. Let's just say you're a sales company, but it does not have to be a sales company. But just it's an easy example, I think that everybody understands. Keeping all of your salespeople informed of all of their all their clients, all their contacts, where all of those, where they stand in their life cycle, and then also the forecasting of whom they could or should be talking to in the near future, and then for those salespeople, information from all, let's just say there's 10 salespeople, those 10 salespeople, their supervisor and their supervisor's supervisor get all the relevant reports about everyone's productivity, which are the most likely to hit, can play into availability of resources, the marrying up of intellectual property at a firm. So it's many things. In the most basic third grade level, I would say it's this. It's that it is a system that relies on the sharing of information within a company, and it is amazingly important or amazingly competent at taking all of this information that is given to it, shared to it, to make more intelligent decisions about customer issues, customer relations issues, and prospective business opportunities. And then if you're doing it right, especially with AI tools, giving you constructive possible activities to perform to further the business development activity.
I have 1,000 contacts on my phone. Now, I want to build friendships with a lot of these contacts. So is it safe to say that a CRM system is a kind of a way to organize all these contacts and remind me to keep contacting the people that I need to contact at different times, keeping in touch with people, but thinking about it organizationally. So this same idea of having a system to organize your contacts and keeping in touch with the people that you want to keep in touch with, but scaled up to a business process. Does that analogy make sense or not really?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think even to take it a few more steps further, so everything you just said is 100% valid. But think about it. If you also tied that into, if you're a small company, you tie that into your QuickBooks or whatever accounting software you use. Well, wouldn't it also be nice to know how well these people pay you? I mean, do you really want to go after somebody that didn't pay you for half of a year or people that take 30 days to make a decision as opposed to people who take 60 days or 90 days or a year to make a decision? As well as if you have a list of customers in let's just say several different industries, if you can, as you mentioned, slice them up and put them into buckets with regards to their industry, then you can also marry that up into the intellectual property that you have that works for each one of them. So you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. And you can also, if you couple CRMs up with either by themselves or with more high-powered marketing tools. Once again, this can be at the 2-3 person company or 100,000 person company. You marry this up into tools like your Marketos and your Parrots and your HubSpots, which are marketing tools, and then you can start having campaigns go out at your style to the right people with the right message. And you don't need an army of people to do it anymore. And then obviously with one of the purposes of our conversation with AI, that is really just it takes it's like the icing on the cake. It takes it to the next level where it can overly it's probably the wrong word, very high level of customization to your prospective opportunities.
So I'm HubSpot certified.
Mhm.
I'm a customer of HubSpot. I don't know what's your opinion of HubSpot. I know that as a small business myself, I'm an one person agency, so I help clients with their marketing and automation, as well as the latest generative AI and deploying AI agents that are trained on their brand's personality and products and services, among others. But I use HubSpot, and to me, the most important factor for HubSpot is really the marketing automation side of things, where I could have an active lists that are generated automatically as soon as a new contact is there. Could be a newsletter subscriber, could be someone that I've met through a networking events like the one I was in this morning, and then it takes that customer into a journey of a series of emails based on give, and then ask, which means that I need to I need to build this relationship from ground up and demonstrate value and really have them find value in what I have to offer. uh, am I missing anything in the picture? Like, as a small business myself, as an agency, as I mentioned, and you are a CRM consultant, what would you tell me to do, or what would you point me out to?
It's interesting. It's a great question, and it's interesting because my first introduction to HubSpot, just off the top of my head, maybe it was 9 years ago, 8 years ago, hopefully they're that old and I just didn't make, but they were a much smaller entity than they are today. I think that HubSpot has come such a long way in such a short amount of period of time. It's quite remarkable. I also think, and this is probably going to get me in trouble with some company out there, but the quality of the CRM systems in general, and the add-ons, like I said, the HubSpot, Parrot, Marketo, the list goes on and on. The quality of these tools is so high that I have found that it is more likely, if someone is not happy with an installation, meaning both the marketing tool and the CRM, if they're not happy, if their leaders' expectations haven't been met, or they're not getting the value that they thought out of the system, it is, I don't want to say it's 100% of the time, but it is certainly higher than 80% of the time, in my experience, that it is not a technical problem. It is you have a poor process that you didn't change, and you expect these systems to magically improve those processes, or you're just not using this. You're using the system for what you expect it to do, but you haven't spent the analytical time to tell me what it actually can do and what it was designed. So I would say what you said about HubSpot is a perfect way to go about it. I think you could make any one of these systems. That's a general statement, but it's pretty close to being true. You can make any one of these systems almost certainly make it work in anyone's environment. I think the beauty of particular HubSpot is that it is much more obtainable for smaller entities than the bigger guys, the Marketo and the Pardot. They all can work, but I think HubSpot is, since maybe it's because of its roots that it was kind of designed back in the day for smaller organizations, and it's become grown into a bigger thing. I think it's much more, and I think the UI on HubSpot is kind of more in line with the app world as opposed to the mega system world. That makes sense.
I like what you said about garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Sure.
The way we put information into these systems is really what we harness in the end. I remember I basically started HubSpot like 5 years ago or something. And I remember connecting all my emails on my calendars and dumping all my contacts and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, I have a big giant mess that I really cannot see any value coming from it. And then I had to delete my account and start all over again. But this time, which is beginning of 2023, this time I was very intentional. I put a pen and paper and start strategizing, start planning. What are the lists that I want to have? What are the contact types? What are my processes? So if you start like CRM without really having a solid plan, I think you're destined to fail. And I think that's when people like you, Michael, your expertise in CRM and strategy and consultancy, tell me, how do you walk clients through in the beginning of that process, even maybe before choosing a system for them? What are
Yeah.
the steps that you take?
Well, it's funny. A lot of the block and tackling that you have to do is no different than any other system. My opinion, though, is that the consequences of getting it wrong are quite large, because these systems, and once again, if you're talking to a medium-sized company and above, the price tags are enormous. It's not hard to hit $1 million spend with some of these big systems that we're talking about. I mean, obviously, smaller companies, there's much, much less money. But I really have two different things, and I'll first make a qualifying statement. I have found that there is this niche market out there that is about companies that are 2 or 3 years down the path of having a CRM and a marketing system, or just CRM alone. And they're about 2 or 3 years into it. They spent, X amount of dollars on it. And some executives are really not happy. They thought that, buying whatever, Oracle, SAPs, Microsoft, you name it, that after having it for a couple of years, that all of these problems that they knew they've had will have gone away. And, I've had many executives say to me, you know what, if we just get one big sale a year from these systems, then it pays for itself. Just one. And obviously, you say to yourself, my God, of course the system can help you get one sale in a year. But the reality is that, how do you prove it was the system that did it, right? So how do you say, somebody's going to say, well, I would have gotten it anyway, that kind of thing. And so that's very difficult. So it is extremely hard to prove value, but it is almost a certainty that you are going to have people, 2 years in, that are not going to be happy. Somebody's going to be feeling that they're overpaying for their division or their geography, within a company itself, or, the process is too cumbersome for themselves, so therefore they don't do it. Or you have staff people that say, well, my leader complies with using the system, but still relies on us or makes us use the old system, the old spreadsheet or whatever they used to do. So you have disgruntled people that are, possibly doing double, triple manual effort. So the way in, at least for myself, on the back end, is going in as an unbiased person. I have nothing to gain. I'm usually selling an opinion on what the problem is and my recommendations of how I would solve it. But I'm not going fingers on keyboard and actually solving things for people. And certainly I can broker and help people out, pick people. But I don't have, some companies will come in and do a consulting and say, there's your problem, and you pay me an X amount of dollars, and I'm going to fix it for you. You don't have to worry about that with me. I'm just going to shoot you straight and say, this is it. So it's usually a couple week study. I go in and interview people, executives, and you usually find out pretty quickly of who loves it, who hates it, and the reasons why. And then you just work down to the root cause. Now, as far as companies, as you were asking specifically about before they do a selection, usually companies hire third party vendors to help them pick out tools. Once again, very frequently, those same companies are the company that's also going to implement that tool. So I also have my services as being, once again, an unbiased opinion. Whether you are successful or fail or pick the wrong one or not, I'm going to help you, but I'm not. You don't have to worry about me saying, well, if you pay me an X amount of more dollars, I'm going to change my opinion, or I'm going to do something, or I'm going to support that. So that's really how it works. I think the biggest mistake is generally that companies make is saying we're going to get a CRM system because they've heard everyone else is doing it, and they don't have specific goals to reduce X, to improve Y, that we are losing 20% time on going after efforts, and it's taking us 2 weeks to come up with answer RFPs, and we want that to go down to 2 days. They don't have a specific reason other than we need one, and a lot of times that's the kiss of death.
To add to your to what you're saying, oftentimes a CRM is a reflection of the company's processes. So a lot of the times, if the processes are contradicting, if the processes are not up to par, the CRM would not work as it is intended to. And I noticed that, again, with my own practical examples, when I'm building a CRM system for Parrot Slab, I noticed that I had to go back and review my processes, like all the checklists, all the processes that I have implemented prior to implementing a CRM system. I noticed that I have to go and review them, because when you put these processes into a system, you start noticing their logical fallacies and their logical issues. So I think having a CRM system, but being very open-minded, especially at the beginning, is very crucial, as you need to review a lot of the things that you take for granted within your organization before actually having a robust CRM system. Do you agree with the process side before we jump to AI?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting. There's a human dynamic there that you were talking about, identifying the processes. Well, what's funny about that? Okay, once again, that question at the highest level sounds, okay, let's identify the highest process. As your company becomes more and more complex, if you are listening to this show right now, and you are a decision maker that could make all of this happen, and your company is manageable, that you can say, we're going to have this process and we're going to do it this way, I'll say right now, you are in a fantastic position to proceed forward. That said, if you are a company that is larger to significantly larger, with divisions and regions and things like that, this is where it gets a little tricky, because if I was a betting person, which I'm not, but if I was, I would say most likely today, those different divisions have different processes to get the same thing done. Different approval processes, different people look at things, maybe different steps, authorizations, whatever the case may be, the reports that come out, something's different. Many things are different. And then if obviously for every division you have, that just keeps extrapolating out exponentially. Where the issue lies is understanding there's a human nature to this, is saying, why are they different? who created the ones that are different today? Do people know why they're different today? And what I have found to be is that it is very common that the person who made the processes that are being followed today are probably pretty passionate about why that process is the way that process is, right? And if you can't get a common baseline across the company at some level of a process, then you are going to have some disgruntled people, and it will come back. It might work for a month or two or three or whatever, but at some point it's going to get ugly. It's unfortunate. It happens. The good news, as the purpose of, or one of the topics of this conversation, is that the AI tools that are coming out in the CRM space are helping with that customization. Meaning, if you have a backbone process that ensures, data quality and things are going to the right departments at the right time, that's great. But each division leader, or even each department leader, or even in a small company, somebody might want to show a report that's this way, and someone wants to look at one this way. I mean, it's common. And then when they were running the processes, they would get that. Well, what's nice about the AI tools is that they allow for, or they make a very comfortable layer of where individuals can make those minor adjustments and get things on their own when they want them, how they want them, while still not impacting the core workflow that is crucial to data quality and data stability.
Absolutely. To continue with the AI influence on the CRM system, I just want to make sure that our audience differentiate between the deep learning side of AI, or the data analytics and data processing side, as well as generative AI, which is the large language models. And the reason why I want to make this distinction is that because when it comes to CRM is all about tabular data that is being analyzed to predict certain outcomes. So you can predict the sales forecast for the coming quarter. You can predict those elements based on the data that is available and based on the data engine behind these CRMs. Now, this is not new. This has been the case for, correct me if I'm wrong, for the last maybe 5-10 years. That's the case. Now, what is new and what's the subject of our conversation is the new generative tools that are that we're seeing being added slowly to CRM systems. And these generative tools are allowing us to interface with these systems in a fundamentally different way. So with natural language, you can go to these systems and then start interacting with them. And then you're basically speaking to the software in natural language, and the software is doing all the processing from and the things behind the scene to come up with solutions to that. So have you seen a lot of adoption to these interface, the conversational interface side of the CRM?
I've seen many AI tools vendors that have come to me and had conversations, just like we're having now, with what their tool does, what it can improve, where it's going. The adoption of those tools, it's still light, meaning not a huge amount of adoption, because here's one of the issues, and I'm actually speaking about this later this month at a forum, is that the tools are coming out so quickly that people don't know where to go, where to look. I mean, it's quite amazing. And then not only do you have the issue of new tools coming out on like the different vendors around the world, but then all these tools themselves, the ones that you've mentioned earlier, have their own AI engines built into them too. So now there becomes this huge decision point of, do I stay with Salesforce and their suite of AI tools, or any of the others, or am I going off the ranch and picking someone else? So the successful implementation and bringing them into active processes, everyone is dying to do it. It's very little happening out there yet, just because there's just so much. There's just so much of it. But I can see where the companies are interested in and what the tools are actually doing. Most tools right now are harboring around, as you were just mentioning, the interface with a CRM system to say, what is the next client I should be going after in January if I want to focus in, the Northeast of the United States, for example. And it will go through everything the company has been doing, what other your colleagues have done business up there, the contacts that the best way in. It has all those things. Also, a lot of what AI is doing is coming up with, for salespeople, it's Monday. Here are the 5 people you need to contact. Here are 3 emails that you need to write. I've already written them for you. Here's our latest corporate sales pitch. They're doing all of those things, and they can do all those things. I have not seen what I would call a real grab of all of those services and put into a singular company yet, or an adoption of a real company yet, because the modification of the current way is huge. It could be getting rid of workforce and processes and people and teams, and so in that regard, I think the small to medium sized company has a very big advantage over a larger company right now, because they can pivot quickly. So the tools are there. Is the desire there yet? It's still questionable because people don't know who to trust. Where should they sink their dollars? Which one of these companies are going to be around in a year or 2 or 3 or 5? Do I put all my eggs into one basket? There's just a lot of those questions still, and that's also a lot of the conversations I have with people right now. It goes back to the original questions we said before. What is your goal? What is the problem you're trying to fix? Are your people really bad at doing what this new AI tool you're looking at is going to do for you? Is that really a problem? If it is, then we roll after it. If it's not, I wouldn't do it just to jump onto the bandwagon.
I am right now building what OpenAI called a GPT. I'm building a GPT that can take action on my behalf and basically takes my to-do list and basically do it for me. And I think I should probably have like a tutorial video on YouTube just to explain what I'm doing, because it's so much fun. Because you basically you give it knowledge about yourself and your business and what the projects you're working on. And you give it specific introduction, like or instructions that you are my personal assistant and you help me out with all my business operations. And then in the actions side, you connect it to Zapier and other automation tools. And then these tools, Zapier, for example, is already connected to your Gmail and to your calendar and to a bunch of other apps. And then all of a sudden, you are interacting with an interface of ChatGPT. And then you are basically running your business from a single point of entry. Send me who should I contact today, and it will tell you, and here's some emails. And then you said yes, okay, send it. So do you think that the future of white collar jobs is going to be like approving an AI to perform things on our behalf, or you think the human element will remain important?
Yeah, I think there's a huge part of it that's going to be the approval part that you just mentioned. Your story reminded me a bit about a conversation I probably had about 6 or 7 years ago with someone in London, and I was showing them, with obviously pre-AI CRM days, of like, here is the report that you can get every morning. And I used to call it a gazette. Like, here is your newspaper. It's going to have these 3 columns, and this is going to be your contacts that you should contact today, just based upon just old school, algorithms. And here's things in the news, and here's your travel schedule, and just things like that. And I remember the executive looked at me, because I knew this is going to be the first time in their life that they would ever have this kind of piece of paper on their desk every morning when they walked in. And I remember the executive said to me, he's like, well, so what do I do with it now? And I'm like, I don't know. You're the executive. I don't know what you do with your information. I'm just giving it all to you in one place. And the solution that you were just discussing obviously goes the next step. So the concern, the scary point there is having trust in the decisions that were made on your behalf by these tools. So it wouldn't surprise me if we were at a point where it provided with a list that with a one-liner summary on each thing that says, I want to do this, and then you say, okay, that kind of thing. I think the scary part about it, because I was in a conversation last week, is where people were talking about AI tools that could place inventory orders, like things that are going low in the stock room. And then, of course, someone else brings up, well, why don't we just marry up the AI ordering tool with the AI, receiving tool on the vendor side, and then there's no humans at all. We're just buying and sending stuff without it. And I'm just like, oh, I can see a problem here. But I think that day's coming, though. Obviously, as long as there's trust in the system, that's where it's going. So I think, look, you're never going to be able to, I don't think, be able to get rid of the experience of humans dealing with humans and dealing with complex problems, whether they're intercorporate, political, whatever. You're just not going to get past that. Someone has to, be able to read the room for things. That said, the writing of 10 emails every morning that are basically the same thing, asking for updates and whatnot, of course those things can go away. You have to wonder, though, at what point does the need for those emails go away themselves? Because if AI tools are running the systems that they're checking, you would, at one point it's going to be not necessary to keep asking updates, because theoretically those updates should be coming to you automatically. So we'll see. We'll see. I think the tool that you said you're personally working on, it sounds very cool. And it's interesting to see I think the challenge is going to be is making it great for you is one thing. Making it great for everybody is the next one. It's the next harder part. And that's where it's almost like you need AI to help you rate the AI, so it can be this amorphous blob that can fit the needs of your intended consumer.
We just had this technology right now, and it's only going to get exponentially better. So all what we're doing is trying to imagine what is the future is going to be like and what's the future is going to hold. And I feel that we're only playing in a short window where humans are still going to be important. But I feel like in the very end, it's all going to be machines. But when machines are only talking to machines and we are only the subject of their interest, so do you think that we will end up with something like universal basic income? Or do you think that the capitalism systems have to collapse because of all of these machines replacing all of these knowledge workers?
Boy, that's a whopper of a question. Let me answer that with a little bit of a conundrum. It's hard to imagine in reality of that being the case, but it's also hard to imagine, maybe it's a paradox, it's also hard to imagine with machines doing all of these other things, that it doesn't have to go to a system like that. Because, I mean, it's funny. I remember being a little kid watching the original Star Trek, which is obviously dating me. I'm like, I've never seen one person ever on this show pull out their wallet and pay for one damn thing at the bar, at the restaurant. Never. I've never seen anybody say, anything that revolves monetary issues. And I'm like, how are they paying for everything? And then I kind of deduced, I'm like, well, I guess money isn't relevant anymore because, you want a drink, you just go up to that machine on the wall and say, give me a drink, and it pops you out a drink and food. I mean, I don't need money for that. Um, you know, I don't know, what jobs, it seems like every day, whether you're, watch YouTube or whatever you do in your spare time, that you don't see things that you didn't think AI or an advanced robot type of device couldn't do for you. And they're doing it. And you're like, oh man, I mean, who would have thought of auto driving cars? I mean, who would have ever thought of that? Not that many years ago. They're here. So money going away seems hard because, I mean, especially with the global level of poverty and manual work around the countries, there still has to be some kind of system. But having it morph into something that is completely unidentifiable, absolutely. I mean, I could easily say.
With every new technology, although there are the Luddites who rejected technology, but then technology proved that it is a catalyst for new jobs to be created, right? So I like to keep being optimistic about this, but the more I study AI and the more I see where this technology is going and the speed it is developing on, the more I genuinely worry about the future of employment. Because as you mentioned, you watch YouTube, and then YouTubers who make their living out of YouTube can be quickly replaced by avatars that they look and sound just like as if like you. I created a video myself, like 2 avatars, and I had a conversation with them, and it's available on my YouTube channel. And now, okay, it's still short, you cannot produce like big large videos, but down the line I can see that happening. In Hollywood, they're talking about custom built movies that you basically you came from work, let's say you sit on your couch and you want to watch Netflix, right? But instead of watching a pre-developed movie, the Netflix will ask you, what would you like to watch about? And then you say about, like, I don't know, the dinosaurs having a love affair. And then the AI will fabricate a Hollywood level movie for you and deliver it to you right there and then, based on all the preferences that it knows about you. So, and then you go to, so this is art, and this art and creativity that we thought initially that AI is not going to touch. And all of a sudden, AI is dominating these fields. Logo design, who would still hire a person for a logo design? Even right now, you can go to DALL-E and ask it to create a best logo for you. So what happens to the graphic designers? And then writers, what happens to writers? What's happening to people who do make a living from email marketing? What happened to people who do social media captions if they have all of these robots? So, I mean, it's really hard for me to be optimistic when I see all of this happening.
Well, it's interesting. No, you're right, and you can be optimistic about the advancement, but you can be pessimistic about how the advancement is going to be received and utilized by the masses. And as far as the YouTubers that you were just speaking about, yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I mean, I have to tell you, there's a lot of YouTube channels now that I've like unsubscribed from because they've gone into these ultra robotic speech patterns, and they're crap. But that's just because I think the people who are making them aren't utilizing them to their fullest potential. Um, I've also seen along the lines of what you're discussing, and keep in mind, going back to the topic of what we're talking about, like CRM and AI, all of these things are applicable in this world. I mean, you could easily, going down the path that we were just mentioning, have an AI avatar, a research department for your company sitting inside a CRM as an AI avatar, and you go in and ask that person, just like you would do right now, talk to your research department at your company and say, hey, I need a paper on oil refining, in 2025 in Iceland. They're going to go off and get that document for you or create the document. Well, you can do that right now as we're talking. You can go in and talk to your local avatar at your company and ask them the same thing, and they'll produce it for you. And once again, no people were involved in that process, which is a scary prospect. I would hate to be 20 right now in college trying to pick out how am I going to wrap my head around which technology to go after, because it's rough. I don't know what is safe or isn't safe. I think the best thing is to be extremely adaptable and flexible in your path. Um, and I think right now, I mean, immediately, I think the art of writing the best script for AI, I think that's a huge talent because I have seen scripts like on Midjourney where people put in, 700 words to come up with a graphic, and you look at it and you're like, wow, I wouldn't have come up with 8 words, and they came up with 600, and so I think there's a huge art there. But presumably AI is going to start helping you with the script writing for those things too. I mean, to the level that you need. So where do you go with all of that? And it's funny on a lighter side. You were talking about Hollywood. I also saw that with the gaming community, that companies are now putting AI avatars where they used to have like, non-playing characters roaming around this fantasy world. Now they have AI powered avatars roaming around the world, and you go up to them. There's no set script. You just start talking to them, and it's just incredible. I mean, no one is playing the same game anymore because your avatars are different than mine. It's phenomenal. So I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I think adaptability, flexibility. I think you have to, and this is another thing I say to executives in the CRM world. Most executives that are successful enough, and once again, maybe this is medium to larger size companies that are proving the expenditure of these systems, didn't use these systems to become successful themselves. So it's very hard for them to relate to the power of all of this stuff because it's kind of, to them, it's like a feather in their hat. Hey man, I did it with what's up here. I didn't need any of these fancy tools. But you're more in tune executives, regardless of age. You're more tuned executives are saying, well, you know what? If I'm going to be worried about employee retention and acquiring new people that want to work for cutting edge companies and coming up with amazing ideas, well, you better adopt these tools now because everyone's going to have them. Their refrigerators have AI now. So if your workplace doesn't have it, who are you going to keep? What kind of staff is going to want to work for your company? Because everyone up they go up against, whether it's in a professional services firm or a sales firm, everyone else they're going up against is going to have the power of information at their fingertips that potentially your people don't have.
Michael, I want to end with a personal question.
Shoot.
So, as I mentioned, I started Parrot Slab. It's a one person agency after a long 15 years career in marketing, and after finishing my master's in information systems and with a concentration on artificial intelligence. Now, I want to help clients. I want to sit in front of people, and I'm confident that I can find solutions. And I think the amount of time I spent learning a lot about the technology and all my experience in marketing puts me in a good position to help many clients. However, the part I dread is really chasing after clients and finding a right fit of a client. And sometimes I feel like, wouldn't it be just easier to just be employed as a CMO or like a marketing director or something in one of these big companies and receive a paycheck every end of the month? So tell me about the consulting business. What's your advice on people who want to start a consulting business?
Well, look, firstly, I would say there's nothing wrong with being a CMO or a CIO or a CTO of a large corporation, assuming that that company's missions meet your own personal goals. You know, I think, I can speak for myself, is that when you start butting your head up against what can be done or what you want to do with what the company doesn't want to do, that's when it gets time to start saying, what's next for you. I would say that the biggest problem is obviously finding clients that want to speak and differentiate. And the way to do to that is differentiate yourself from your potential competition. I think many consultants, both ones that have worked at big companies and independent, in my opinion, make the mistake of feeling they know the solution before they've listened to what problems are. And they try to, I fix this, therefore I'm going to make your problem be fixable by this. And what's that expression? Something like, to a carpenter, every problem looks like a nail or something like that. It's like, just going to hit it. Obviously the ability to create your own destiny, and go after what is unique or what makes you happy is the best part of it. For me, it's the ability. One, I love talking. I love speaking on public forums. I love to teach related to what we're talking about. Mentor, lead, build teams. So you have to be able to find. I mean, is it possible for you to find your clients in this big world? I mean, on your own, can you do it? How do you do it? Once you solve that problem, then the rest, quite frankly, becomes easy. If you do a good job, one job becomes two, becomes three, becomes four. But that's the hard part. I mean, the best part about it is you don't want to do exactly what you're doing today, and you decided that your little AI tool isn't working the way you want, and you want to do another one. Well, go do it. Whereas big companies, a lot of times you have to check your thoughts, your ego, your whatever at the door because no one else wants to hear it. I mean, for me personally, I come to that point when I say to myself, it's like, am I spending more time defining what is what's the purpose of the mission as opposed to actually improving the mission? And when those two things get out of whack, that's, for at least for me, it's like time to bail out and pull the parachute. I would say in the AI world, the biggest challenge right now is that there are so many AI widgets. I mean, I think I just saw ChatGPT has a whole new
Store.
app store now, and even tools like Canva have their own AI app store. And then I go through these things, and there's pages and pages, and I'm just like, oh my, I don't even know how to digest this. So I think, I hope it's not as bad as it was back in the, late 90s with the whole Silicon Valley IPA boom and then burst of the bubble of, all these tech companies going to bust. I'm a little concerned that there's just too much AI right now. There's more AI being produced than I think AI being consumed profitably, and that's the last point I would recommend to anybody going into this world. If you can't prove if you can't prove that you're going to improve the bottom line, or that the implementation of an AI tool is, you're going to be able to maximize ROI, then don't do it. Because inevitably, someone is going to get very upset in the months to come when they spend a lot of money, time, and people on something that we're really not sure what we did. So I think that's what I would say to anybody. Before you develop anything, before you consult on anything, how are you saving people money? Yeah, you're going to charge them, but how are you actually going to save them money? And if you can't do it, rethink what you're doing.
Michael Hudlow, thank you for spending time with me today. I appreciate your wisdom and expertise, and it was a delightful experience.
I completely concur, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.